What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Crew 2, and in this video I'm going to be taking another look at the score breaker set on the hypercars. Now I'm not going to lie, I really have barely used this at all, and I don't actually think I've ever really used the score breaker set on the hypercar, so I want to take another look at this. So funnily enough, I actually had a score breaker set on these vehicles, I just never used it. So I wanted to take another look at these to really see if the scorebreaker set is worth going after on the hypercar class. We all know the rally rate has that crazy set at 89%, which I did mention in the rallycross video as well. So I was like, you know what, let's see if the hypercars can be used on the off-road slaloms and or the ones on the racetrack. And from the testing I have done, guys, I'm honestly pretty surprised how good these cars actually do. So the setup I actually went after with the hypercars are going to be a little bit different. So for this, I decided to go after skilled, which I would say is going to be pretty obvious though, because if you are going after a score breaker set, you're most likely going after skill because you're going to want the highest percentages possible to get the best score on these skills for that matter. Now the other perk I went after, which I'm not going to lie guys, to be able to set some of these parts up is going to cost a lot of money. I believe I spent around $2 million and about 120,000 spare parts or so. But the other perk I went after is going to be muddy. Now the main reason for this is I wanted to try out the hypercars on the off-road slaloms, which I really know does not make any sense whatsoever. But to my surprise, the cars really did a lot better than I thought. The Regera, for some weird reason, is actually a really good option on a lot of the off-road slaloms I was testing it on. I was doing some of the ones we have to go down a mountain or pretty much drive it in places it does not belong. And I was still scoring very close to the other classes as well, and maybe 1,000 or 2 off of that crazy rally rate set, which I think is kind of funny. So if you really wanted to, you could probably run a hypercar on the off-road slaloms if you had a score breaker set. And I did notice the muddy perk is going to help this a lot because I did notice the car getting more acceleration in there. Now I do not have all these at 8%, but I have about a 52% muddy perk you guys will see right there on this. And I have been noticing a big difference with this overall. Now what's kind of funny to me is the hypercars are doing a lot better than I really thought they were going to on the off-road slaloms, which if you really think about it does not make any sense whatsoever. I was actually scoring very close to the rally cars as well when I was running the Regera on some of the more difficult off-road slaloms. This car was not struggling at all, which is kind of funny. So I do think the muddy perk on there is going to make a big difference. And as I did mention before, the hypercars felt right at home when doing any of the road slaloms like on the racetrack or like the one in the fields or something like that. The car did a really good job, so I would say the hypercars are going to be a great option. I'm also planning on taking another look at the drift vehicles as well because I feel like those might be able to be used on slaloms. We'll have to test that out just a little bit with a score breaker set. But it is funny the fact that a hypercar can be used to go down a mountain, which I plan on jumping into a couple of these more annoying slaloms with this vehicle right now to really show you how funny these vehicles are on this. So for the first slalom, I decided to head over to the one that was in the summit recently, and the main reason for this is this one literally goes down a mountain and you're really putting a hypercar in a place it really does not belong at all. And the biggest thing is, I know a lot of players might be wondering, could the hypercars get a good enough score to actually get a good amount of points in the summits and actually stay in platinum or get like 155k plus or something like that? So a couple of the test runs I have done on the slalom, this car actually got around the same points, if not more, than the rally cars. So now jumping right into this, one of the biggest things I did notice by the way is the fact that you will have to get a bit of a head start with the hypercars because, well, these vehicles literally do not belong in this terrain anyway, but yet somehow they can still do it. In some areas on a lot of these slaloms I was testing out, I was actually passing one of the ghosts a lot, which is kind of funny because these cars do not belong in here, but yet they could still get a really good score and easily compete in the summits, which I think is really funny. I'm actually planning on trying these cars out more in future summits, by the way, guys, because, for example, right here, I did manage to get over 19,000 points, which if you did do that, you're looking at about 155,000 total points in a summit, which is funny because the hypercars literally are not made for this at all. It seems like the hypercars really do not struggle all that much in many of these slaloms, which I think is going to be really good to see because now players can definitely mix this up a lot. Now, sure, if you guys did run that crazy rally rate set, you're probably going to get 157k or so because those vehicles really do dominate when it comes to scoring like that. But one of the biggest things I have noticed when testing out these other classes is that crazy set on those vehicles doesn't really seem to make much of a difference in the summits, which I think is really good because originally I really thought the rally vehicles are going to be the best ones to use because of that set. And while trying out other vehicles in slaloms, I've been noticing that you do not have to have that and you can still easily get a really good score on this. Now, let's say someone did get 25,000 points on one of these slaloms and, well, you wanted to run a hypercar on an off-road slalom, which really does not make any sense. You somehow get 23,000, which I'll probably end up getting from this one here. You'll most likely get about 154 to 155,000. If you guys might have been wondering as well, all the skills are going to be capped at 157, so it seems like most of these vehicles can also easily compete with some of those better sets. It really just depends on how fast you can go in a lot of these skills. Now, one thing I was always wondering is, could a hypercar actually compete with a rally raid and or rallycross car in many of these slaloms here? Because let's be honest, the hypercars are really not made for this, so I originally thought these cars would be completely useless for these off-road slaloms, but after seeing some of my friends use it, I was like, you know what, let's actually try to get a score breaker set and really try this out. And well, I'm not gonna lie guys, I'm generally surprised with how good these cars actually do. Now, what's kind of odd to me is the fact that I did manage to beat some of my scores with this car compared to the rallycross vehicle with literally the exact same perks, except the muddy, which obviously that's a rallycross car, so having that on there might help. But do keep in mind you guys will not be able to beat the rally raid vehicle score with this, but luckily getting around 1 to 2,000 points in difference of a lot of these summits I think are going to make this a lot more fun. This is also going to help these summits a lot because now we can run other vehicle classes in them and still get around the same score that someone would have using the rally raid vehicles. Now this also might make a lot of players upset because having that perk set, you know, should make it a lot better, but I do believe that's one way to like balance things out, because having a 75% perk on that, like the regular cars have, I think should still be able to compete really well, and luckily they do. So the 89% on the rally raid vehicles are going to be basically for going after like a world record or something like that. But if you guys have a regular perk set on pretty much any of the classes like the hypercars, you could still easily compete in many of the off-road slaloms, which I think is going to make this a lot of fun. Let me know what you guys think about the score breaker on the hypercars in the comments below, and thank you all so much for watching.